Uh, we made apple butter the old-fashioned way, uh, mostly because my grandmother wanted to. It'd been a long time since she'd made it, and she wanted to make some apple butter. And so she had a brass kettle. It was a huge kettle, and I remember it being black on the outside because it'd been used a lot over an open fire, and brass and shiny on the inside. But we built a fire. We made a fire ring with rocks, built a fire, and set the kettle on the fire. And we had a long wooden, um,
Stir.
I guess we just called it that, didn't we? That we would stir the apple butter with. And you cook the apple. I mean, you peeled the apples, put them in the kettle, put sugar. They would use cinnamon, and you just cooked it slowly, cooked it and stirred it. It was like all day to make apple butter, but it made a huge amount, and then they would can it and have apple butter all winter.
A lot of times it was a community affair too, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
took people all day to stay busy and keep watching the fire and keep stirring and keep the apple butter cooking. So it was just, it was another community event. And if
And
someone was making apple butter, people showed up to help.
brought their apples, and would bring food, and it did become a social event too. And then everyone could take apple butter home.
Okay.
Do you want to hear about killing chickens, or is that just way too much?
We know about killing chickens. Any other thoughts really quickly about any kind of herbal or plant use that either of you can remember?
None for
We've
me.
talked, I feel like we've talked about everything
I'm
you
good.
can remember.
Well, I think we've only touched the surface of what's available to use. I've always felt like we are on this planet that there is a plant or food or medicine for any need that we would have. And I don't know, I came to believe that in my early 20s, I guess, when I really started thinking about plants and doing research and studying and reading everything I could read and talking to everyone I knew who knew anything about plants and their medicinal uses. And then if you go back in history, there's so much information about how plants were used, and some of it not correct. You know, such as just because the leaf is heart-shaped doesn't mean that that plant is good, is a medicinal use for the heart. I know some plants were considered good for blood issues because when you broke the stem open, there was, what was that plant? Not mayapple, was it?
I don't remember.
But anyway, if you're really interested, there's a lot of information. Even though the old information might not be correct, it's still interesting the way people have always tried to use plants as medicines. And so I think that we have as a people, we've always known that however we were created, that there was something also created to feed us and to make us well when we were sick. That's just my opinion.
God's medicine for us on the earth.
I think so.
All right. Thank you. And tell us one more time what your name is and where you grew up.
Betty DeVault, and I grew up in East Tennessee, in this area along near the Nolichucky River, in a small community.
Ed DeVault. I grew up here in Leesburg community near Jonesboro. Have lived in this area my entire existence.